crime has three parts: the means, the motive, and the murder. Behind every headline lies a deeper story, a puzzle of human nature, obsession, betrayal, and sometimes pure evil. We break down the evidence, examine the psychology, follow the timeline, and ask the one question that matters most. Because the truth is never as simple as it seems. He was known for his energy, his flashy fashion, and his camera-ready smile. On TikTok, he called himself Mr. Prada, a rising influencer from Baton Rouge with thousands of followers and a feed full of dance routines, comedy sketches, and high-end aesthetics. But behind the filters and flashy outfits, Terrian Thomas was unraveling. And in late September 2024, his double life exploded into one of the most shocking murders Louisiana had seen in years. He called himself Mr. Prada, a 20-year-old TikTok influencer with thousands of fans. Lavish clothes, bold captions, and a flair for attention. But what his followers didn't know was that behind the designer image was a dark and deadly secret. This is the story of Terrian Ishmael Thomas, known online as Mr. Prada, and the brutal murder of a respected Louisiana therapist that left a city stunned and the internet in shock. Terrian Mr. Prada Thomas. 20-year-old Terrian Ishmael Thomas had carved a fast lane to digital fame under the alias Mr. Prada, amassing millions of followers across TikTok accounts. His content often leaned into style, persona, relationships, and fashion, the polished aesthetic masking a more turbulent undercurrent. Thomas lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and was known to post across multiple accounts, collectively drawing over 8 million followers and hundreds of millions of likes. Though a public figure online, much of his personal life remained opaque. Friends, adversaries, motives, all shadows. While his personal life may have remained a mystery, many of his followers were aware of his status becoming more infamous in days prior to the tragedy. Since around late 2022, many TikTok users have accused Mr. Prada of taking jokes, video ideas, meme styles, skits, etc. from other creators and using them as his own. These complaints aren't just whispers, photos, side-by-side comparisons, and posts by creators calling themselves victims of Mr. Prada circulated online. His original TikTok account, Mr. Prada 77, was banned in November 2022 amid the plagiarism/alleged copying complaints. After the ban, he returned under different usernames at Mr.Prada44, at Mr.Prada47, etc. He has been reported to have admitted to copying content in live streams or other videos, and expressed that he did so without shame or regret. There are videos/posts, some now deleted, where he appears defiant or dismissive of the criticism. The phrase Mr. Prada victims became a meme, a trend. People who believed their content was copied would post calling themselves a victim of Mr. Prada, often showing their original and the allegedly copied version. This has given him kind of a controversial status, popular and followed, but also often criticized and mistrusted by segments of the TikTok community. In contrast, Dr. Abraham's public persona was grounded in a long, layered life of service, counseling, and community presence. For decades, Abraham was a licensed therapist in Baton Rouge. His biography notes 30 years of work in fields such as substance abuse, depression, and anxiety treatment. Before becoming a therapist, he spent 11 to 14 years as a Roman Catholic priest, an earlier chapter not without controversy. One particularly dark blemish on Abraham's record arose in 2015, when he was accused of molesting an 11-year-old boy during a counseling session. He was arrested and booked, but the case never went to trial, and prosecutors eventually declined to pursue charges due to insufficient evidence. Critics and supporters alike debate the significance of that incident, whether it was a meaningful red flag or a legally unresolved claim. Friends of Abraham remembered him as tender, gentle, a man dedicated to helping others. His legal representative described him as not the kind of man that something like this murder would happen to. Saturday, September 28, 2024. Surveillance footage places Dr. Abraham arriving at Thomas's apartment complex around 11 a.m. that Saturday, walking inside in the same outfit in which his body would later be found. The building is on or near Mancuso Lane/Essen Lane in Baton Rouge. Whether Abraham was a client, friend, or in some other relationship with Thomas remains unconfirmed. Authorities have repeatedly said there is no evidence that Thomas was Abraham's patient. Inside Thomas's apartment, investigators later would discover evidence consistent with a violent altercation. Blood throughout the apartment, multiple sharp objects and weapons, and signs of attempted cleaning or concealment. A warrant affidavit claims that Thomas attempted to hide or discard evidence before fleeing. Witnesses at the apartment complex reportedly saw Thomas dragging a large object wrapped in a blue tarp down the stairs hours later, struggling to carry it. The tarp was allegedly placed into Abraham's car at some point. Sunday, September 29, 2024. The discovery. Early Sunday morning, a passerby noticed a suspicious blue tarp by the side of Highway 51 between Fluker and the village of Tangipahoa in Tangipahoa Parish. Inside the rolled tarp lay Dr. Abraham, wrapped in a gray comforter duct-taped around his body with a towel over his head, and still wearing the same clothes as when he entered Thomas's apartment. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, neck, and shoulders. Law enforcement called it a very physical, very violent attack. Abraham's vehicle was missing. It was later linked to Thomas. Monday, September 30th, October 1st. The Manhunt police spotted Abraham's vehicle in Baton Rouge. When law enforcement attempted to stop the car, the driver, later identified as Thomas, backed into a marked patrol unit, then fled. The chase ended in a crash after a wheel fell off the car, forcing Thomas to abandon the vehicle and run. Following that, multiple accounts suggest Thomas managed to reach a bus station from which he traveled to Dallas, Texas. On October 1st, he was arrested in Dallas by U.S. Marshals. At his initial arrest in Dallas, he was booked on charges unrelated to the murder: unauthorized use of a vehicle, aggravated criminal damage to property, resisting arrest. After additional investigation, Louisiana prosecutors charged him with second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. Over time, they upgraded the charge to first-degree murder because the victim was 65 years or older, making Thomas eligible for the death penalty under Louisiana law. In January 2025, a grand jury returned an indictment, formally charging Thomas with first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, aggravated criminal damage to property, and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. As part of court proceedings, the judge denied bond for Thomas. Prosecutors continue gathering evidence. As of the last reports, law enforcement has stated that there is no evidence that Thomas was Abraham's client, no counseling records, or known professional tie. What linked them remains one of the key mysteries. Because the 2015 molestation accusation against Abraham is in public records, speculation circulated online and among fans that Thomas might have held past trauma or animosity toward Abraham. But Abraham's legal representatives denied that Thomas was the accuser in that case. Also, prosecutors declined to charge Abraham in that earlier case, citing lack of evidence. To date, no direct motive, revenge, betrayal, or otherwise, has been proven. Some observers and fans note that Thomas's public behavior in months preceding the homicide became erratic. Videos surfaced of him cutting his hair unevenly, deleting past content, and making cryptic posts. However, those observations remain speculative and do not constitute legal evidence. On TikTok, Mr. Prada built an image, flawless, fearless, unforgettable. But behind the ring light and the edits was something darker. And now the world waits to see whether justice and truth will ever fully come to light. At just 20 years old, Thomas was in a precarious place psychologically. He had publicly discussed being bipolar, a serious mental illness that, if untreated or poorly managed, can lead to episodes of mania, paranoia, and impulsive behavior. But bipolar disorder alone doesn't make someone violent. What concerns forensic experts more is the intersection of that mental instability with narcissistic traits and a potential break from reality. Thomas's online life revolved around image, status, and control. If something or someone threatened that image, especially in a private or intimate setting, it could provoke what psychologists call a narcissistic collapse. A moment when the ego is so deeply wounded, the person lashes out in extreme, irrational, or even deadly ways. In the absence of a confirmed motive, forensic psychologists can only infer a likely psychological chain of events. Psychologists might categorize this act as reactive homicide, a violent, impulsive act committed in response to an acute psychological trigger, rather than long-term planning. However, the steps taken after the murder, attempting to clean the crime scene, moving the body, driving the victim's car, suggest a level of cognitive awareness and concealment, complicating any possible insanity or diminished capacity defense. That's why a competency hearing was ordered, to determine whether Thomas understands the nature of his actions and can aid in his defense. At its core, this crime may not have been about Nick Abraham at all. It may have been about Terrian Thomas's internal collapse, a breakdown triggered by fear, rejection, or rage, when the carefully constructed digital identity no longer held up in the real world. In forensic terms, this wasn't simply a crime of violence. It was a crime of identity, perception, and psychological fracture. As of October 2025, Thomas remains behind bars awaiting trial. The outcome of his competency hearing may determine whether he ever stands before a jury. If found competent, the court could pursue the death penalty. And if not, his fate may be decided in a hospital rather than a courtroom. One thing is certain: Nick Abraham walked into that apartment alive and never came out. The case has rattled both mental health professionals and social media communities, asking hard questions about the performative nature of wellness, the thin line between fame and instability, and what happens when the filter cracks. Originally charged with second-degree murder, Thomas's case escalated quickly. Because Abraham was over 65 years old, prosecutors upgraded the charge to first-degree murder, a capital offense. Now Terrian Thomas could face the death penalty. But the case isn't that simple. Thomas has openly discussed bipolar disorder, and his erratic post-crime behavior led the court to order a mental competency hearing. Before the trial can begin, the court must determine, is he mentally fit to stand trial? And deeper still, what was the motive? Why did a 20-year-old TikTok star kill a 69-year-old therapist in such a brutal, personal way? To this day, no clear relationship between the two has been established publicly. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please don't hesitate to reach out for support. You're not alone, and help is available. Talk to a trusted friend, family member, or mental health professional today. Thank you for joining us today. If this episode resonated with you, please like and share, and continue the conversation in the comments. Check out our next video where we examine the motive, the means, and the murder. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and take care of each other.